Wow, do people love to lose their head in Barcelona, but this time it wasn't an intra-team battle. It was just Max Verstappen going crazy. I'm Rachel, and this is my race rambling for the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix. We're going to get into that. And also, before we do, I need to give a quick apologies. I never posted a video about Monaco. I was at the Indy 500, so I didn't watch Monaco. Then I was traveling home, and then I got sick, and then I had a lot of work to catch up on. So I've watched the race in 30, so I'm gonna have some blind spots, but we're gonna cover it quickly at the end just to think of the bigger, wider implications and some sort of touching on important people's races. Okay, so let's get started here with the weekend rating for the Spanish Grand Prix. I am giving this an 8 out of 10. I think I have last 10 laps recency bias because that was kind of fun. It is kind of fun to just like, though I don't endorse Max Verstappen going crazy, it was kind of fun to watch. And I think I also have a bias because I like more pit stops. And we had 3 to 4 pit stops per person, so I enjoyed that. It was also just, I don't know, I wasn't too bored throughout it. Honestly, this should probably be a 7. I'll change it to a 7. It's been like an hour since it's been over. My recency bias has faded, but it was a good weekend. Okay, moving on to qualifying. So we have Piastri on pole. That is his 4th pole of the season, and this season is the first time he ever got pole position, so that's kind of crazy. Pole position for a Grand Prix. He got sprint pole a couple years ago. And so that's 4 out of 9 races he's had pole position for, which is crazy. That means there's 5 other positions up for grabs, and not all of those have gone to Norris, and it's been pretty heavily biased to the McLaren. So that says something. My kind of takeaway from this weekend as a whole is that things could always change, but at this point, 9 races in, I think it's fair to say that Piastri is having a much stronger season than, I don't want to say that than we expected. I think it's just that he's stronger than Norris, and he's more so stronger than Norris than I had expected. I always kind of knew, I just wasn't sure if it was going to be this season. So I think it's fair to say now that Piastri is having a good season. I mean, in 9 races in, it could all go to shit. I don't think it will. Okay, so Piastri on pole, Norris P2. We knew it would be between either one of them. Interesting little takeaway there, as they were mentioning during the race. David Coulthard was mentioning just how close all of the racing is. He said Spanish GP, when he was driving, it was 7/10 from pole, 7/10 to the next person. Like, his teammate was ahead of him 7/10. Michael Schumacher was behind him 7/10. That would have put Yuki Tsunoda, like if we were thinking that sort of gap, that would have put Yuki Tsunoda qualifying in the top 6. So it's crazy how close it is, but at the same time, it's been very consistently McLaren fighting for the poles. And the race wins, which we'll talk about, but the technical directive has not changed. So Verstappen P3 with that makes sense. Very typical. The rest didn't quite have it for quali. Leclerc was sacrificing some of his tires for quali, which worked out in the race, so that worked out for him. Gasly P8 is nice. Hajar P9 is nice. Hajar, again, he's just slaying. I'm very impressed by him. He's consistently the second best Red Bull car, which we should not put him in the Red Bull car because Yuki, of all the indicators, Yuki Tsunoda is the biggest indicator that it is the car. And they were saying on the broadcast that like it has a higher potential, the Red Bull, but just such a tight window that it's like impossible to drive. And that's what happened with Yuki Tsunoda in qualifying. They didn't get the setup right, and he couldn't even really drive it because he's just so scared he was going to crash. So they've got to figure that out, though at this point it might be a 2026 solution, but I don't know. I don't love the direction Red Bull is going in. It just, I don't quite have faith in the Red Bulls. I don't know. I mean, maybe 2026 it could go crazy, but I just think they've clearly got some internal issues with management that is really biting them in the butt. Okay, Sainz, I'm not sure what happened. I actually feel quite bad for him. He's been doing quite well, and then you come to Spain for your home race and you're P18. That's awful. That's not fun. Colapinto P19. He's not doing any better than Jack doing. He's not. And then great quality for Sauber here. We have Bortolotto P12, which is their his highest qualification this year, his highest start ever. So that's nice to see that they're moving up. They actually had a great weekend, spoiler alert. But nice to see Albon P11. Kind of strange that none of the Williams got into the Q3. We're kind of so used to that now. I don't know, something just didn't quite work out for them. We'll see, maybe they'll improve. They're still, spoiler alert, sort of best of the rest by a decent amount, so I'm not too worried. I think they'll figure something out. Okay, moving on to the race here. We have to mention Lance Stroll, which was just kind of an odd situation. So if you all remember in 2024, the start of 2024, or was it 2023 at this point? 2023? It wasn't the most recent Drive to Survive, so yeah, 2023. Started 2023. Lance, before the season even started, Lance fell and broke his wrist, got surgery on it, was able to participate in Bahrain. It was kind of a shock. Whatever. Apparently, it's been aggravating him the past 6 weeks. And right after quali, for some reason, they called it. They said, this isn't working. He's got to go get some sort of procedure. So he was not racing, but because qualifications had already happened, they could not put in their reserve driver, Felipe Drugovich. So they just only had one Aston Martin this weekend, which is kind of strange. Like the timing of it that they called it then, you would have thought, if it's been bugging him for so long, I guess they're kind of like, it's fine. Maybe something happened during quali where it's just kind of like, okay, this is enough. We've got to do something about it. Honestly, if it really, like, it must have hit some sort of peak because Canada is next. They probably would have done something earlier to try to solve it because you want to obviously make sure he's good and able to race in Canada. I'd hope he's able to race in Canada. We have 2 weeks, so we'll see. Considering he was able to race so quickly after that operation, I'm hopeful. But I don't know what sort of things he's got to get going on. Obviously, if something is irritating him, it's not good. So hoping the best for Lance. I hope he heals well. They're saying that Felipe Drugovich would be able to sub in for Canada, but that is also the weekend of Le Mans. So I don't know why he would be willing to give up. Felipe Drugovich, I don't understand his priorities. I'll be so honest with you. I do not understand his priorities. I don't understand why he, like, cheaped out on IndyCar and is now just, like, in WEC, which WEC is great. And so you're, like, racing Le Mans. Who cares about the Canadian Grand Prix? Obviously, I do, because I'm Canadian, and Lance does, because he's Canadian, but, like, whatever. I have some weird bias against Felipe Drugovich, just to be honest, because I think he was not nice to IndyCar. Anyways, Alex Albon DNF, unfortunate. Williams just obviously not having a great weekend. He just had an awful race, to be honest. He had damage early on, had to pit, change his front wing. Then he was overtaken by Lawson and felt he was pushed off, but he wasn't. So he took the exit road and came up ahead. And then Lawson overtook again, and there was damage there. Kind of weird overtakes today as a whole, like weird aggravation in these overtakes. Then he got a penalty. I believe he served it and then retired because he just had too much damage. So kind of weird for him. Everybody's like really antsy today. I guess that's what happens at the end of a triple header. You're just kind of like nerves are shot and you're not able to like think properly in the car. For both of them there, Albon and Lawson, and we'll get to Lawson more in a second. Antonelli DNF. Oop, let me add that here. Add that to my graphic. I forgot to put it there. Okay. Unfortunate for him, 2 weeks with no points. But the car just kind of gave out. Nothing he could have done there. I'll mention this now because it was just funny. Terry Crews in the F1 TV post show, he was very upset to see Kimi Antonelli go off. He was like, we just got to make sure everybody's safe. They were like, what are you excited for the rest of the season? He's just like, making sure everybody is safe. You never want to see it. It was so cute to see Loki. Like, you don't always see all the celebrities being very entertained, and he is obviously very entertained by racing, and he was like clearly very excited, so that was kind of nice to see. Going back to this, Ocon Behrman, not a great race for them. Colapinto, P15, unconvinced. We have Sainz up in 14, so recovered a bit, not quite to the points. Poor qualifying, he couldn't really make up. Unfortunate that this is a weekend of no points for Williams, but they're still best of the rest. I think it's just kind of a dud. I'm not too concerned. Yuki Tsunoda, so he had a pit lane start. Made it up decently well. Not to the points, obviously, but P13 is pretty good considering it was pretty racy between like P8 and P13 where he was. So not the end of the world that he ended up back there, but also kind of is when you're thinking about the situation at Red Bull. It was mentioned in the pre-race, not that they did work together, but the McLarens had the opportunity to work together to prevent Max Verstappen from overtaking either one of them. Verstappen was up there by himself. He didn't have any support. He's now for a while been racing without any support, and that can be much more consequential than we realize. And a point I have on later, but I'll just mention it now. Max also can't be driving this way when he doesn't have any support. Because it's not just about supporting him, it's about supporting the team. If he messes up, nobody's there to catch up and make points for him. And so this is what puts Red Bull in such a situation, and just their car development in general have put them in such a situation where they're stuck in some way. And I don't know how they get out of it. I don't know what went so wrong from like 2022 and early 2023 that it just went so far that now it's undrivable by anybody else. And it honestly is starting to feel that way, that it's undrivable by anybody else. And why would anybody else want to be there? Because it's just like, it doesn't make you look good. Like, I think we all understand now what the issue is, but it still doesn't make you look good, especially when Max still has an ability to find something out of it. But that's what you happen. Higher range, but a lower operating window. Moving on to Lawson. He was a mini Max today, which I think is what I've always kind of felt that way. He has the same sort of aggression that I think enticed Red Bull, and that's why they moved him up so quickly. Obviously, it didn't work out. And this is something to say about Max today, too. The aggression is helpful to a certain point, but there has to be a point. Otherwise, it's just aggression that is getting in your way and everybody else's way. And that's not helpful to anybody. That's what makes you crashy. That's what makes you, like, not good to race against. And, like, so he had the little incident with Alex Albon, which we mentioned. Then he had a weird overtaking battle with Ollie Behrman. I don't think, if there was contact, it wasn't to the same extent as the Albon contact. He tries to overtake Ollie Behrman again. When there's already the blue flag waving, so he should be letting Lando and Max through as they're coming through. The leader's coming through, and instead he tries to overtake on Ollie Behrman again, and it doesn't quite work out, and then he's holding up everybody. Like, the aggression for what? For what? Like, you're trying to battle for points, I get that, but, like, you still gotta have an ability to think rationally, and they've both lost it today. Speaking of now, moving on to Max Verstappen. So he started P3. He got the overtake into turn 1 on the first lap, overtook Lando. Lando came back and got him later. And he sort of gave it up, which was kind of interesting. He didn't really battle it, which I think is interesting, especially then considering where his mindset was at the end of the race. For Max Verstappen to kind of let it go easy is not something he's done recently, especially for the McLarens. So I think that's super indicative of where the McLarens are at, but also where Max Verstappen feels he is and where he feels a Red Bull is, to just like be like, okay, this isn't my race. It's not going to happen. Let me try to do it a different way. Granted, I'm sure he knew at that point that he was doing the 3-stop and he thought he could work it up some way, and that almost worked except for the safety car. And then they pit him for hards. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? I don't understand why they pit him at all. I don't think they should have pit him. That's not what ended up causing the whole situation. Max just losing his head is what caused that whole situation. I have a section for that, so we're going to get into that later. But, like, he would have got at least a top 3, top 4, and got more points than the 1 point he got for P10. Whatever. I don't know why they did that. Okay. Indicative of Red Bull. I don't know. Moving on. Alonso. Great race for him today. He's not washed. He's got some points. Finally, he was home and he said, I need to stunt for my people. Sainz is having a problem. I need to stunt for my people. We've got to give the crowd a good race. And I'm happy for him for that. Makes up for his DNF last weekend. Happy for him. Gasly also some nice points for Alpine, though they are, spoiler alert, last in the Constructors' Championship. So he's kind of doing enough considering his teammate, but he's also not doing enough. And that is, proof that they need the teammate to be figured out. And I don't think swapping them around is helpful, but you know that already. Okay, Hadjar, P7. Both him and Gasly, great for them. They must have been very excited by PSG winning. They were very amped up. That photo of, what the heck, like, the veins in Gasly's arms are kind of scary. what was with that. But obviously, they're very excited and it amped them up and it did them well today. So shout out France. They're probably very excited. I'm very impressed by Hadjar again. Consistently, the best finishing Red Bull today. And consistently the second best finishing Red Bull. I was concerned he was going to be too hot-headed, and look how wrong I was. Look what's happening to everybody else. And I don't want him to be moved up into the Red Bull. I don't. I actually want him to get out of the Red Bull. Now that I like him, I want him out of the Red Bull environment. Alpine wouldn't be better, would it? The French connection, but I don't think that would be better. So we'll figure out something for you as a catcher. But again, I keep saying every time, I'm endeared by him. I like him. He's won me over. Okay, Lewis Hamilton started ahead of Leclerc. Then Leclerc caught up to him and was obviously faster, and they swapped positions, but should have swapped earlier. Whatever, it still worked out in the end, though he was overtaken by Sauber. It's just not working out, is it? It's just not working out. Last week, he had to ask his engineer, "Are you mad at me? Are you upset with me?" And apparently, he wasn't on the comms anymore, and he didn't hear that. What? Because they were really hyping up on the broadcast. They were like, you can't, it's so odd to be telling a 7-time world champion to give up the position. But, that's where we're at. It's kind of lame, isn't it? Because the thing is, Sainz was, comfortable enough to push back. Hamilton is sort of pushing back, but it doesn't seem that Ferrari is listening. And Leclerc is at a point where he is now, I'm still back and forth on Leclerc and Ferrari. The last time I was like, it's not working out. He's got to give it up at some point if he wants to win the championship. And I still feel that way to an extent. But then also sometimes it will work out. It worked out well today. I don't know. Such a weird situation with Ferrari. I don't know what to say. Okay, Hulkenberg, great race for him. Points for the Sauber. Big points for the Sauber. That's very exciting for him. I'm not sure how he did that. He just figured it out. And overtook Lewis Hamilton. Overtook a Ferrari. The Sauber overtook a Ferrari. What? That's you see what I'm saying? Okay. George Russell, good race for him. Nice undercut he took on Lewis Hamilton, which got him up to P4 after he overtook Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and survived that. Again, we'll talk about that. What the hell? Literally, what the hell? Thank God that it happened when it did, so any damage he did receive was enough he could survive the last couple laps. But what the hell? We talked about Leclerc. Norris, good overtake on Verstappen, though he did kind of give it up, so that's weird. I don't really blame him for losing it in turn 1. He just had a better start, and it's such a long gap between the start and the first corner that, it's kind of going to happen if you're not absolutely perfect, and not just, Norris should be perfect, but, whatever, it worked out in the end. Never quite got up to Piastri. I don't know if that's just because of all the pit stops. We were never running quite long enough for anybody to really catch up. That's kind of consistently a story the whole race. I guess that's sort of what happened. But he was lucky to stay ahead of Max Verstappen after his second and Max's third pit stop. Got helped by Yuki Tsunoda sort of being in the way, and in the end, I think the Lawson being in the way did help him. But I don't know. My comment on that is Lando's won 2 races and Piastri has now won 5. And that goes back to my point at the beginning. I don't know if we were expecting that to this extent. But it's still tight enough in the championship battle, which is interesting because Norris is just always second. So, overtime could be good enough. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So moving on to Piastri. Pretty dominant win. All of his wins are pretty dominant. He was helped, obviously, by Norris losing it in turn 1. Losing it to Verstappen in turn 1. So, obviously, he didn't have to worry about that. And then Norris overtaking Verstappen added another little bit of buffer for him. But again, really not challenged. This is very, a typical Oscar Piastri win. It's just very dominant. You're never really thinking it's going to be anybody else. And I think that says something. Because it's not just about how many times you win, it's about how you win. And he's got both. Okay. Moving on to my driver of the day, has to be Nico Hülkenberg. I don't really have much to say because I honestly don't know how he did it, but he did it. P5, you've got to give it to him. And I also do think he's the best. Like, my other driver I would put was, like, maybe Leclerc, but in the end that was kind of luck. Piastri because it was so dominant, but now I'm giving it to Nico Hülkenberg. The people give it to Max Verstappen. Obviously, they did that before it happened. But I don't understand even what he would do to get driver of the day. He's in that, I don't know. I was going to say he's in the second best car. Is he? I don't know who's the second best car is. Obviously, the McLaren is the best car. I don't know who the second best car is. Moving on to Max now. So I've talked about the sort of first bits of his race, letting Lando through, which was kind of a weird and of note to me. I'm sure he got quite frustrated by Lawson in the way, especially because it was Lawson. That's actually something I didn't know before. It was another Red Bull car. You can't be getting in the way. Like, oh my God, you can't be getting in the way. And he was mad about it, and I think that's probably what really sent him off. He almost had it. The 3-stop almost worked. It was a good intimidator, which is what they wanted it to do. I don't think it would have won him the race, but again, I do think him not pitting would have had a better finish than him pitting and going onto hards. I really don't understand why they did that. But it was the only tire left. Yeah, so just don't pit. I really don't think he had to pit, so I don't understand. Maybe they thought he would have dropped off too much on older tires while everybody else was on fresher softs. But why would the hard be better? Why would the hard be better? It wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah, I don't think regardless he had the pace to catch Lando. Again, him kind of coming out behind Yuki didn't help. Him getting stuck behind Lawson in the lap cars didn't help. So, yeah, I just don't understand the decision to put him on hards. And that obviously, is not an excuse for his behavior. I've seen people kind of be like, it doesn't really matter what happened because they messed up his strategy by doing that. Yeah, and then he made it worse. He made it so much worse because he could have finished as P5. It would have sucked, but he could have finished P5. And then he decided to run into George Russell and get himself a 10-second penalty and put him into P10. Why did he do that? There's no excuse for that. It's really, they kept saying it's unacceptable, and it is absolutely unacceptable. Okay, little tap with Charles, kind of a racing incident just kind of happens, whatever, it was fine. Nobody was hurt by it. Little incident with George kind of taps him and gets ahead, but then doesn't, and then, gets ahead. Hang on. There's a little tap. Max thinks that Leclerc, yes, that's why I'm so confused. Max thinks that Leclerc needs to give the spot back. Why does he think that? Why does he think that? For what? You're allowed to have a little tippy tap. And even if there's a penalty from that, it's not give the spot back. It'll be like a 5 or 10 second penalty. So why does he think that? I don't know. Then there's a little incident with George. He thinks that George tries to overtake. There's a bit of a tap. Whatever, it doesn't work out. Red Bull says they should let George through. I don't know if that's true, but I think they were just kind of be like, I don't think they were saying give George the position because of the incident. I think they were saying just let George overtake you because you don't have it. Don't crash because of this. And then he goes to let George through and then rams into him and was complaining about what happened to him. I'm going to say he must be sleep deprived as a new father. And that must be what it is, a triple header, and he's sleep deprived as a new father. But and I kind of feel like 10 seconds is not enough because there was 2 drive-through penalties last weekend in Monaco from leaving the track and gaining an advantage, which situations like that, I guess rules are rules. They didn't seem too upset with the hit. It seemed, I don't know the rule book by heart. It seems that's just kind of what you get for that. But when we're giving out stop and goes, or drive-throughs, sorry, and then you give Max a 10-second penalty for obviously intentionally running into George Russell, I think it should have been harsher. I think it's kind of, the penalties thing is kind of interesting to me because there was a point where it was getting harsher and I don't feel like it's as harsh as it was. I don't know. I'd love some consistency there. I don't feel like we super have that, but I don't have anything else to say by that because it's just unacceptable. Moving on to the technical directive. So, basically what happened, sometime last year, Red Bull was upset by the McLaren front wing. They felt that there was too much flexion in the front wing, too much, flexing. The point of the flexing is that it reduces drag, lets you go faster, especially on the straights. So, Horner complained about it. I think it was Horner. I don't know if that's confirmed. I believe it was Horner. Nothing was illegal, but they've decided to tighten the rules. Took some testing for them to decide to do that, and that is why it happened now and not at the start of the season. So, we've changed it. The rules are not tightened. You're not allowed to flex the wing as much, though there, according to Lewis Hamilton, there is still some flexion. He thinks it was a waste of time. And I don't know if it was a waste of time or money, whatever. Like, but it obviously didn't do what they wanted it to do because it hasn't hurt the McLaren at all. Especially considering Spain is a track that McLaren hasn't done too well at. And this is what happened. It was a very dominant 1-2. It was a waste of a complaint because if anything, it might have helped them. So, whatever. I don't have too much to say on that. I just wanted to flag it because it was kind of like a big thing coming into this weekend. And now we can obviously say did not do anything to hurt the McLaren. Maybe hurt the Williams, actually. I don't know. Okay, let's touch on Monaco quickly. So again, I unfortunately have not watched the whole race. I just watched the race in 30. I don't know, maybe would have watched it, but it's also like Monaco, and that tends to be boring. Which, let's just start with that. Let Monaco be boring. I think we're allowed to let Monaco be boring. I think quali is fun, and that's enough. It's the most exciting quali session of the year. Let it be. If the race is boring, who cares? It's such a spectacle. And yeah, I understand the people, most of the fans will never get to experience the spectacle, but it's also like a moneymaker for the teams. It's a moneymaker for F1. I think of all of the situations where F1 and the teams are doing funny things for money, I think Monaco is the most fine. Like, and the problem is the cars. It's not Monaco. And that's a consistent problem across the board that we need to fix. If we made the cars a little smaller, it would make a big difference. And so we should just do that in general because it would help not just Monaco but everywhere. And I'd be quite upset if Monaco left the calendar. I don't think it should ever leave the calendar. I think, like, I don't know what tracks can leave the calendar. I don't want any of them to leave, really. Well, I actually have a video about that you can watch in my rankings. But, like, not Monaco. Let it be. Like, who cares? You can have one boring race. And in the end, it can still be fun with crashing if we just... whatever. So, I heard the Mercedes kind of forgot about the two-stop legitimately, which, like, what? I don't know if the two-stop really helped. I think it did probably help. I mean, I'm biased. I like pit stops. And I do think pit stops do increase the ability for something fun to happen, because when you think about it, somebody's coming out of the pit, cold tires, somebody faster behind them, increases the chance for a little incident, increases the chance for a safety car, increases the chance for some fun. I'm about to watch the Detroit IndyCar race. That's kind of the whole gig. It's just kind of chaos. If we can get it to be more like that, I think that would make it more fun. And to some extent it was. I mean, not as much chaos as the start of last year with the Alpine incidents, but there were some crashes. Whatever, the Williams ended up with double points. Good for them because they got no points this weekend, so whatever. Esteban Ocon had points. Ajar also got some points at their home-ish race. Unfortunately, Gasly crashed, so that's awful for him for his home-ish race. P2 for Charles. Again, I think he kind of sold his soul to have some of the races he had last year, including Monaco, so P2 is good, all things considering. And it's actually a good finish for him in Monaco in general. So he'll be happy enough, not having it, obviously he wants to win, but good enough. Lando winning, good for the championship battle, good performance for him, lap record there. Can't really complain, he had a good race. He was obviously benefited from Piastri not qualifying as well and ending up finishing P3. That brought the points gap to 3 points for a second, now it's back up to 10, and from that perspective, it's a good thing that McLaren didn't interfere in Imola, because as soon as the next race, it goes down to 3 points. Any interference could have tilted it either way after that race. So I stand by what it said, that it's a good thing that they didn't interfere. It makes it more impactful when it does, which is a good and bad thing. But I think it's for the better in the end. Okay, driver standings. As I mentioned, Piastri still leading. Gap was 3 points after Monaco. Now it's back up to 10. And for that, I think the lack of interference in Imola was a good thing. Verstappen's still in P3, but he's kind of losing his chances by race. We're at a 49-point gap between him and Norris in P2, so That's not impossible, especially at this point of the season, but when it's then the 59-point gap to the race, to the championship leader with Piastri, that's a bigger gap. And I don't anticipate the McLarens, either of them, to fall off substantially. So Albon P8 is, at this point, is fantastic still. I don't know, because there's so much variance at the bottom of the field that I mentioned this before. You just do well enough or good enough run, especially at the start of the season. And when there is so much challenging there's no saying that anybody is ever going to do that again to the point that they're going to catch up. So I think he has a good chance of actually finishing within the top 10. Hadjar P9 is great. Again, I'm very happy for him. Interesting that the gap is 42 with Albon and then 21 with Hadjar. So that just goes to show you he's got like a 21-point buffer already. So fantastic for Albon. Ocon is nice in P10, 20 points, with Hadjar only 21. That could go either way. Hulkenberg in P11 with 16. Great for him today. Great points for him today, but I don't know if the Sauber is actually there enough for there to be a change there. But I mean, it's only 4 points. You never know. Okay. Lawson got points in Monaco. I have to shut that out. So finally he's got some points. And Alonso's finally got some points today. So now the only drivers without any points is Bortoleto, which not reflective of his talent, but reflective of the car. Jack Doohan and Colapinto. So yeah, I'm not convinced. So with that, that takes us into the Constructors' Championship. And as I mentioned previously, Alpine is P10. I think this is really indicative of Gasly's strength as a driver, and also indicative of like the pressure hurting both Colapinto and Doohan and kind of preventing them from being able to reach their full potential. Doesn't look good, doesn't position them well to sell, but again, I think it's all kind of leaning, like I think we're going to end up that way. I just kind of do. 2 good weekends for Ferrari has made, or for Charles has made Ferrari jump up from P4 to P2 since I last looked at this, since Imola for me, so I'm not quite sure when this happened, but I'm happy to see that personally. Mercedes in P3, so they were P2, now they're in P3, and Red Bull in P4, they were in P3, if I'm remembering correctly. So, a little drop off from Red Bull. Obviously, this weekend didn't help that. And again, Tsunoda not even being able to be a help is hurting that. But again, not Tsunoda's fault. And then some variance, but not too much. Sauber and Aston Martin now tied for points. I think Aston Martin will eke up in front of them. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because there hadn't been much change, and now 2 weekends go by and there's a substantial change in this, so I'm interested to see how it goes the rest of the season. That's kind of all I have to say. I have to watch the IndyCar race in Detroit now. Hopefully it didn't restart already. Broadcast window started at 12:30. It's now 12:47, so I'll have to switch on to that. But thank you all for watching. Apologies again for missing videos next week. Dude, it was a lot for me. I didn't have it in me, but I'm back now. And I hope you'll stay around. Thank you for watching. If you're watching and you'd like to listen, this is also available on Spotify and all podcasting platforms. If you're listening and you'd like to watch, this is available on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, rate, follow, all of the things, and I will catch you next week.